One Senator Daniel Sparks will be there, of course, assuming his important role in the process. From District 5, Otawamba, Prentiss, and Tishomingo County. He's also Vice Chairman of Senate Corrections. Good morning, sir. How are you? It's good to have you.
Good morning, Paul. Appreciate being with you.
Man, I thank you for being in the studio, and well-timed, because on Sunday yesterday, we got a little bit of a shocker. Were you expecting this, or what's your insight? And we're talking about the governor's throwing his weight behind the postpartum.
Well, I appreciate his leadership on it and the situation where he clearly said in his statement, look, we're doing something, in his case, it's philosophically uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. He has told us many times he's data-driven. We have had postpartum coverage under the healthcare emergency for the last 2 or 3 years. We've got some data coming out. COVID is mixed in that, so it's not really maybe the cleanest data. But we've also got Texas is doing this. They're going to have some data, and I think it's the move we should make. I appreciate Chairman Blackwell, Lieutenant Governor Hoseman for championing this legislation for the last couple of years, and I think it's a good decision. And I appreciate the governor being willing to step up and say in a post-Dobbs world, these are things that we believe are our responsibility, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, you cannot leave that equation out of your post-Dobbs, because that is most important. Now, and I go back to an article that was in the Magnolia Tribune talking about a lot of the people who were on this that passed away, some of the mothers that died, were already on Medicaid. And I think that is a cogent fact there. But it is kind of negated when you start thinking about you got 5,000 more. So we're in a new ballpark with this post-Dobbs world, and how do we effectively handle that strategy? And the only way to seem to be out there is to do it. But here's the other cloudy part about it that I'm not sure about. When did it end, or has it effectively ended yet, as far as that coverage that was attached to COVID?
I don't know that it has ended. There's been so many.
I don't either. I mean, I think it's still going on, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's the healthcare emergency. Obviously, there were a lot of things that were done, and some of it is beginning to roll off. But of course, the legislature's only in session, in the early spring. So I think it was a good thing to go ahead and signal, hey, look, if this legislation comes out, I'm going to sign it. Then we can evaluate it next year and the year after that, and look and see what the policy should be going forward. The other thing is, it's not just about deaths. It is about the next birth, and so often the low birth weight babies that come out of a second pregnancy that's too close to the first one is one of the things we also try to prevent, to keep these babies out of the NICU, to have healthier children and healthier moms. And these are moms who are working. That's the part we don't want to forget. The reason they don't qualify is they actually are working and they're wage earners.
As a voter, I see this as the legislature. You've got a job to do, and your job is twofold on this one. Just to pass it makes you feel good, but when you pass it, you've got to have it implemented where that can be received at the end from the end user. Then, I guess what I'm saying is, if you have rural hospitals closing, if you have the health centers, as Dr. Edney said, you have one out there that they actually had to kick the possums out. Because it's in such a deplorable condition. Nobody wants to go into a place that looks like a drug house or something that's got wild animals in it. So the legislature has to come up one way or the other as far as the health centers and address that, certainly in these rural areas. Would you not agree with that?
Well, I think we've got 4 pieces of legislation that came out of the Senate that address some of the issues at our hospitals across the state, and increasing residency, increasing the number of nurses. Also, the grant program that's out there that is targeted toward the things that number of beds, the type of care that you give, different types of beds. And there are, we're looking for solutions out there, but there's also so much of this that we're in a changing environment, and we just want to make sure that we're doing things that encourage the innovation, that encourage good service. But the model that we've been operating under for decades is probably not the model of the future.
Yeah, you can say that about a lot of different things coming up. Have you looked at the health centers in your area as far as District 5, done kind of a review in those areas?
We're fortunate. I think in District 5, there's major, obviously, hospital systems in the district. There's also, nurse practitioner offices. There are several things. I think we have a high quality of health care in Northeast Mississippi.
The governor said the legislature should pass a law continuing this 12 months of postpartum coverage. If they do, I'll sign it into law. I don't expect all my friends to agree with this decision, he said yesterday in that post on Twitter. He said, but I make it, as always, because it is the right thing to do for Mississippian moms, given the fact that, as I see it today, the announcement, which the Republicans describe as part of a pro-life agenda, comes after healthcare professionals and others have asked for the extension. My question is, can he do this without the legislature?
You know, I've
either expand Medicaid and postpartum if he wanted to.
I think, you know, you look at Section 115, and I think that you know, can give you some ideas either way. Of course, I'm in the legislature, and I do believe that the legislature should legislate. You know, we often get bent out of shape, particularly at the federal level, when we have executive orders or executive action. You know, the legislature is elected by the people. We should speak to the issue, and I think the governor was very clear, saying, look, I'm going to let the legislative process play out, but I'm telling you, if you send me you send me a postpartum bill, I'm going to sign it. Now, if we fail to send him one, the Senate's already passed it, but if we fail to send him one, then that would be his decision at that point. But I think he's being fair by allowing the legislative process to work.
Well, yeah, but just as somebody who's followed politics for a long time, in an election year, these kind of train wrecks is not conducive to the GOP in Mississippi.
Well, I mean, of course, I don't know that it's a train wreck. You've got a governor who says...
Well, it would be if that didn't go through. He either called a special session or he decided to do it on his own.
Well, he may exercise to do it on his own if the legislature fails to do it. So part of that is, just part of the process.
Let me go back to ask you, you feel pretty good that if the vote hit the floor in the Senate, it would pass?
On postpartum, we've already passed it.
Yeah.
We've passed it the last 3 years.
But it's got to come back. It's got to come back from the Senate, from the House, doesn't it?
Well, they could pass it as we send it down. I mean, we've worked on it for 3 years. I haven't heard and did not, hear anything in the governor's message that says, "Hey, you need to tweak the bill that's out there."
I got you.
So we have a vehicle ready to roll.
So if it came back the same way and he didn't have to go to conference, you guys would sign it.
No, it'd go straight to the governor.
It'd go straight to the governor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But what do you feel in the House? Is the House? Do you have any inkling at all if Philip Gunn would let it go to the floor for a vote and come out of committee?
Sure, I don't. I have a hard enough time keeping up with our end of the hall. I don't want to speak for the House, but I would love to, see the bill pass and go on to the governor. I would like that.
Have you seen, by the way, we're talking to Daniel Sparks, who's senator from District 5. Have you seen any numbers on this at all from the health department as far as the number of births or anything like that?
I don't have anything that I would have a number to share. At some point, I think last year, from a financial standpoint, it seems like the cost they were guesstimating about $7 million.
That's the last number I heard was about $7 million, and there are a lot of people, and I had some people over the weekend ask me, "Hey, Paul, what happened to the $1.1 billion? Apparently, we're not going to get it in grocery tax relief. Apparently, we're not going to get it in a rebate that everybody was talking about. What happened is, did the legislature keep that?"
Well, I think there's several things going to happen with that money, one of which is going to be infrastructure. We have Emergency Road and Bridge Fund that's been very successful since 2018. We had over 500 bridges that were closed. We've got that number whittled down to 200. The governor came out with a plan last week to spend the lion's share of that on infrastructure, on capacity projects. So we want to use one-time money for one-time expenses. And, the fact of the matter is many of our institutions, facilities, and infrastructure have been neglected over the years. They've been allowed to get in bad shape, and this is an opportunity to get them up to par, and that puts a relief on taxpayers at a local level and statewide.
Are you seeing that he was figuring in his announcement as far as that expansion? He was figuring in that $1.1 billion that was supposed to be in rebate money?
I do believe he was talking about the excess that we have.
Excess, okay.
I could be wrong, but.
All right, we got more coming up, and want to talk about. All right, back to this, and there are some reports that the Speaker of the House has indicated he may be pliable or flexible on this one, and we're trying to get some word on that. So we'll see if we can do that one. But have you heard anything from the Speaker?
No, sir, I haven't. I don't talk to the Speaker on a regular basis. I'm not hardly at that pay grade, Paul.
Well, if you stick around long enough, 15, 20 more years, you may be there. But You are vice chairman of Senate Corrections. I was just going to ask you, anything happening there as far as some of the bills are concerned, because we had several things going through.
Yeah, the last several years, obviously we've done a lot of work in that committee. Chairman Juan Barnett, obviously on the Senate side as the chair, and there wasn't as much activity this year. One of the big things they continue to try to deal with the Department of Justice inquiry, and we're trying to get the things in order. It goes back to your question earlier, where some of our money has gone. And a lot of times it's been to fix things that have been neglected in the past. So, we're trying to take care of that. There are some major contracting issues coming up that I'm involved with. And, you ask about tax cuts, too. There's certainly in rebates. There's a lot of different ways to operate a government, and if you can cut wasteful spending, you can cut the taxes that you put on the people. And I hope that we're looking at doing both, because a lot of people just want to talk about a top line number and say, look, I'm a conservative champion because I'm willing to cut the top line number, but they never look at what's going out the back door. And it takes effort, and you have to sit down and actually read contracts and ask questions and come to committee meetings and be engaged. And that's one of the things on the corrections side. And, of course, we're coming off the heels of a scandal in that department from a few years back. And that's the part that frustrates me the most, is when I find blatant waste, when I find mismanagement. It's not always theft. It's just that we don't negotiate well, that we enter into long-term contracts, and then we look back and go, we just got traded out of our pants. I mean, this is bad. And I'm not offended as a legislator. I'm offended as a businessman when we do that. So we're going to continue to look at that, and that's kind of been where I've been focused. I do appreciate that we received some ACA certification for Parchman. Commissioner Kane and his group have worked hard, but we also have a prison population that's gone from 16,800 to 19,200. So you go back to your contract issues. If I'm paying per head per day, my costs just went up astronomically, and they came forward with a deficit appropriation this year of about $23 million. And if we're not careful, they'll come back next year with a deficit appropriation of $75 million, and then people wonder why you can't cut taxes. So we need people that are willing to work on both sides, not just crow about tax cuts, but also find ways to not have wasteful spending.
Has the role of private prisons changed over the last years?
First of all, I don't mean to be ticky-tacky there, but we don't have private prisons. We have private companies who come in and manage state prisons. Every prison in the state of Mississippi is bonded, owned, and paid for by the state of Mississippi, and the maintenance we're required to do. But there has been discussion about the level of custody. Obviously, mental health has become a big issue in corrections, and that is the negotiating point, is to say, hey, we need to be paid based on this. Of course, we enter into a contract with a private third party for the purpose of making sure that we have the right ACA certifications, that our guard inmate ratio is correct, food, et cetera. And it's a contract, so I expect them to hold up
have they outperformed us as far as the overall goal of keeping the prisoners in, doing what they can for the prisoners, and cutting costs? Have they proven themselves?
I think that's a good question. It looks back to say who's responsible for the training and the preparation for the parole consideration, because when somebody comes in, the judge and the court have made a decision based on the actions that were committed outside. That's not the job of the Department of Corrections. The Department of Corrections is supposed to take possession of someone once they've been assigned to them and house them, but also prepare them for release if they're release eligible. But we got work to do there. I'm holding everybody accountable. I want everybody to just do the job they're paid to do.
What is the realm of responsibility from the Department of Corrections and Mr. Kane, when is a private prison? Do they have authority over that in some rules or regulations or aspects?
Most certainly. You entered into a contract with the state of Mississippi, and that's kind of where I get.
So they're still under they're not outside that scope.
Make them perform. Make them perform to the contract, and that's true with any contract.
Have we done anything as far as any remaining bills as far as the parole board, because they were in the scope of focus early on from some things going on? Is there anything as far as the parole board? Any changes?
Not at this time. You know, the parole board's autonomous, and good or bad, they're autonomous for a reason. The numbers speak for themselves, and it is about public safety first. And if that's the case, and they're holding people because they believe it's safe for the segment of Mississippi, then, you know, we're simply going to have a more expensive Department of Corrections.
So, as far as you know, there was some banter about a possibility of a new prison or in the Delta to replace Parchman, but that's not on the board?
Well, I think anything's still on the board. And one of the things that happened with COVID is I was going as the vice chair, and the chairman was as well, to every facility in the state. I want to look at the facility. I want to lay eyes on it. I don't want to rely on what someone says to me. But also the technical violation centers, the work centers. We have a lot of places we're putting money in the Department of Corrections, and I think it's true across any department, that we need to know what our assets are. We need to know if they're being utilized, and again, be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. You know, we have obviously the House Bill 1020 that came out that was addressing the court situation. We have judicial redistricting next year. I mean, we have a lot of things that are going to be impactful as far as the criminal justice system in trying to get things right. And obviously, you know, Chairman Lamar has put forth an effort, and I know he's taken a lot of shots for that, but he's trying to deal with what's going on here in Jackson.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because apparently Chairman Lamar came and made some changes to that bill, and it seemed like it ought to be something that would have been tremendously acceptable. Then we get to what the Jackson mayor said, and he just kind of poo-pooed that idea. And I was wondering, because it looked like it gave him just about what he wanted.
Well, and there's a lot of good pieces, and you know, Chairman Wiggins and Judd A on our side. I don't serve on Judd A, I serve on Judd B, but you know, they brought the bill out, I believe on Thursday maybe, and I like a lot of what's in it. We've got some temporary courts. I know there was a lot of concern about permanent courts that were appointed, and I get that concern. The Chief Justice already has the ability to appoint judges in special situations. When you have case backlogs, that's already in statute. So that was not a novel concept. But having the 3 temporary special judges and 2 temporary special judges that were going to deal with criminal only, this is the whole point. This is ARPA money, and this is to clear up a backlog that maybe is COVID related, maybe not. I'm getting a lot of good reports on how the DA is doing and how the sheriff is doing. So we've got some great partners to work with. We just need to clear this backlog.
Well, need some trust there between everybody out there that you guys on that side are trying to get the job done and alleviate a problem. I would dare say that the people who were shot over the weekend, their families really didn't care if the judge was appointed or elected, if they had kept that person off the street and their loved one was alive. I don't think it really would matter to them, but the special permanent district in Jackson of appointed judges was modified to address the concerns of their that a white judge would be put another white judge in permanent position. The Judiciary A, as you were talking about, Bryce Wiggins, massaged the bill to become 5 special judges appointed by the same white Chief Justice, Michael Randolph, to dig out of the backlog of cases on the desk of the present 4 elected circuit judges serving Hinds County in the city of Jackson. So there was a compromise, and it also included a sunset on those special judges.
That's right.
December 2026. So it seemed to be palatable, but the mayor didn't like that.
Well, at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that the mayor does I don't like, but the fact is we've tried to create a court issue here. We're trying to work with, and we need to work with the public defender in Hinds County as well. And I think those communications have been out there. You put in judges, you put in DAs, you got to have attorneys to represent defendants. But you said this sunsets. Well, it sunsets in line with ARPA because this is one-time money to deal with a one-time problem. It's a temporary thing. We hope this backlog is not created once again, but as you said, it also allows the Capitol Police to have concurrent jurisdiction within the city because the goal is safety of Mississippians. It's not about personality. It's not about who can argue with one another. It's about safety of Mississippians in the city of Jackson.
Senator Daniel Sparks will give you the final say coming up in the final segment here on any other bills that you want to. Final segment here with Senator Daniel Sparks. Any bills out there, sir, that you're kind of concentrating on, you'd like to spotlight in the last couple of seconds here?
Sure. Thank you, Paul. We've talked a lot about tax cuts, and again, as I said earlier, sometimes those top line numbers and everybody's like, where's the rebate, or eliminate the personal income tax. We're year one into the largest tax cut in the history of the state of Mississippi, and I'm committed to looking at that through the years and moving toward elimination, no problem. But there are other issues out there as far as taxes go, and I appreciate Senator Harkins, who's the chair of finance on our side, that we've had three bills right now that I'm really excited about. One is Senate Bill 3101, which is full business expensing. That allows businesses to invest or research and development and to allow them to expense that. That's not as exciting for some people, but that's real when you're trying to recruit business to the state of Mississippi, when you're trying to encourage innovation in that market, and that's any business. 3102 is a bill that allows you to pay your taxes at the entity level. And again, that doesn't sound as exciting as a tax cut. That is a tax cut for people who can lower their federal tax burden because they're able to they're able to pay their taxes at the entity level and get around the SALT tax cap. So those are things that are going on that nobody throws a parade for you. You don't make the front page of the paper, but it's real impact. And then the third piece is what's really a software tax bill. As the world changes and things become more online and in the cloud, we're seeing things taxed that should not have been taxed. The DOR regulations would say that's an input, that's a business input, that's not taxable, that now is beginning to be taxed. And we're trying to say, hey, from a principle standpoint, you're not supposed to tax that. And so I think you'll see some legislation that deals with that. Yeah. But Chairman Harkins has had multiple meetings with DOR, with the business community, in trying to get it right. So we're working on that side of it and trying to continue to cut those things. We've got, obviously, I've been very involved in the auto dealer bill. You and I've talked about that for a long time, and I'll not rehash that, but I expect that to come to the floor pretty soon. But we've managed to cut spending. We've shrunk the size of government in the last 4 years, the number of employees. We've had the largest teacher pay raise. We're continuing to try to do good things for the state of Mississippi. But we had a hearing a couple of days ago dealing with PERS, and we were talking about decisions that were made in 99 or 2000 that have left us with some of the liabilities that we have today because they didn't fund it as they went. So today, and I appreciate for the last several years, the commitment has been, let's not spend one-time money on reoccurring expenses. Let's not make decisions that leave somebody who's sitting in my chair 20 years from now with problems. Let's leave them with, they can look back and say, man, that was a good policy decision, and we're better off today because of it. We've also paid off bond debt. Now, we're not borrowing money for the state of Mississippi, which ultimately is less flow of money out because your payments go down, and we probably won't do that again this year. So we're trying to be, good, accountable folks in looking at the future of the state of Mississippi.
When it's been a while back, I was talking to, I mentioned on the air that you take a look at the foundation, Mississippi history of after the days of Reconstruction. It's 140 years of really dominant 100% Democrat rule. Democrats they drew the blueprint for Mississippi's laws. They built the capitals. They've enacted the laws. They've made all the changes. So I was, and this has been a while back. We were talking about, and because you mentioned it, we have a lot of laws we don't need, and we've got laws that we haven't changed with the times. And I said, well, you know what? The Republicans have made tremendous strides the last 15, 20 years. And this noted teacher said it will take another 50 or 60 years to do some of the harm we've done in 140 years of some of those old backward laws in the state of Mississippi. Some, which you just alluded to, have been on the books, and we're finding how much they hold us back. And it just takes a while to get them out.
It doesn't, and you play the hand you're dealt. I'm so thankful to represent Senate District 5, and as long as I'm in this seat, I'm going to try to do the best job I can. So maybe somebody can say, well, he left it better than he found it. But, we've got people that work hard every day, and, they send me to Jackson 3.5 hours down here. They expect me to do my job because they sent me here to do it. So I'm proud to be able to work for them.
Always good to have you in-house, sir. Appreciate it very, very much, and thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Paul. Have a good week.
You got it. Senator Daniel Sparks, Mississippi District 5, Etowah County, Prentiss County, Tishomingo County, also Vice Chairman, Senate Corrections